Hey everyone, this is MNL2, and today in this video, I want to take a look at all the roller coasters that reside at Kings Island and find out which roller coasters are going to deliver the most intense experiences. For the purposes of this video, I will not be including every single coaster at the park in this list because some of the smaller coasters don't exactly have any intense moments. Also, when I refer to intensity or an intense moment, I mostly interpret it as having a feeling of sheer speed, considerable positive G-forces, or moments that make you feel like you are going to get ripped apart from the ride. Another thing, keep in mind that this list does not reflect how much I like each ride or how I rank them overall in the park. This list is simply based on which coasters I find to be the most intense. One more thing, if you find yourself enjoying any of my videos or find them interesting, informative, or entertaining in any way, then please feel free to like the video below to help out the channel and help me to keep providing good content for your enjoyment. Thank you. I don't really have much to say about this ride. Rode it once, wasn't too impressed. Definitely one of the least intense rides in the park. It just wasn't very interesting. I was tempted to put Woodstock Express or Adventure Express above this, but I can't honestly say those are more intense than Racer either of those, so... But anyways, this ride will deliver a very small amount of floaters on its hills, and a touch of laterals on the turnaround as it is an out and back. But other than that, it just kind of exists. I assume this ride would be more fun when it's actually racing, but when I was there, only one side was running, so yeah, this was basically just as interesting as Ghost Rider. Fun, but doesn't really do much. The Bat was actually quite surprising. This aero suspended coaster was actually fairly intense, with some pretty aggressive swinging and actually a few moments of impressive positive G-forces. I absolutely loved the first drop, because unlike Iron Dragon or Ninja, it is an actual drop and not just a gradually descending turn or straight track. Of the 3 aero suspended coasters I've ridden, this one is definitely the most intense. Now, all that being said, it isn't an extremely intense experience when compared to the majority of Kings Island's roller coasters, but this one is definitely a great family coaster, especially for younger ones working their way up towards some of the bigger, beastly coasters. Rest in peace on a feast. Alright, so if a roller coaster could be bipolar, then that roller coaster would be Backlot Stunt Coaster. This ride can't really seem to decide whether its restraints are comfortable or annoying, whether the ride is smooth or janky, or most importantly, whether it's a tame, mild family coaster or a heart-pounding thrill ride. So this ride starts off with an LAM launch that leads you directly into a unique upwards triple helix. Now, in order to make it all the way up and over the peak of this ride, it's going to need a lot of speed to make it through this triple helix. With each helix having the exact same diameter, you're gonna hit the bottom of this thing with a lot of speed as you pull a baby Maverick and snap to the right in a tight and aggressive motion. I rode this backlot a total of 3 times and the one at King's Dominion once, and every single time, this first element always forced me to gray out. It's like unnaturally intense for a family coaster. And if this thing classifies as a family coaster, I'm starting to think that Ghost Rider doesn't even deserve the title of upscaled family coaster anymore. Watch out, Ghost Rider. Don't make me demote you to upscaled kiddie coaster. I might even rename you to Minor Mike. Oh, I'm not spelling that like coal miner with an ER. I'm spelling it with an OR. Because that's how minor the thrills on that coaster are. Anyways, back to Backlot Stunt Coaster. Now, I know I just spent a lot of time talking about pretty much one element, but that element alone is really the only part of this ride worth talking about when it comes to intensity. The rest of this ride is pretty graceful with a few random intense snaps here and there, and I would say the next most intense moment is the aggressive drop down out of the iconic Backlot Stunt Coaster's sign, exiting the dark section of the ride. Although this coaster isn't super intense overall, that first upwards triple helix alone makes this ride worthy of a spot on this list. So, Diamondback, along with pretty much every other B&M Hyper I've ridden, with the slight exception of Nitro, is pretty much the definition of graceful. Diamondback is currently my favorite hypercoaster, and also my second favorite coaster overall at Kings Island. This coaster delivers endless amounts of floater airtime on every single hill. The amount of time that you spend floating out of your seat is phenomenal. It's extremely sustained, but that being said, it isn't exactly aggressive. I rode this thing 10 times, all of which were in the rain, and I don't exactly remember any moments of ejector or any gray out moments either. The only real factor of intensity by my own personal definition that this ride had was the feeling of sheer speed as it flies at up to 80 miles per hour through its layout. This coaster doesn't exactly carry out its pacing till the very end of this ride super well, but at least for the first half of this ride, this thing does not seem to slow down one bit. It hauls through those giant camelbacks, and like I mentioned already, it delivers amazing floater airtime. Other than that incredible feeling of speed, this isn't exactly an intense coaster and is way more on the graceful side. The Beast is without a doubt one of the most famous wooden roller coasters ever built. I'm super glad that I managed to ride this thing a total of 9 times, but because of reduced hours, I unfortunately was never able to experience a night ride on this thing, so I can only assume that after eventually getting night rides on this coaster, it will only impress me more. My initial thoughts on this coaster after my first ride were pretty negative because it just seemed super boring and rough without any memorable moments, but then as I continued to marathon it, in the rain by the way, this thing grew on me, something I wished would happen by riding Intimidator 305 10 times. I had hope, but it never happened. Anyways, the Beast delivers a pretty unique experience, utilizing its seclusion from the rest of the world to its advantage. This thing goes really far into the woods, like way out there, and it stays out there for such a long time. I mean, after all, this thing is the world's longest wooden roller coaster. Although most of the elements are just wide, unbanked turns and straight track, flying through the woods on a sketchy homemade pile of planks is an exhilarating experience. The unbanked turns offer excessive laterals, pinning you to the side of your seat each and every time. The tunnels provide amazing head choppers as well, especially the super long ones after the second lift hill. Overall, this was a ride that I went in with mixed expectations and left with some solid thoughts on it. It may not be the best wooden roller coaster out there, but it is surely one of the most memorable and exciting ones. In certain aspects. Well hey, at least it's less sketchy than like all of Six Flags America. Okay, so upon getting on Flight of Fear, I definitely set my expectations a little too high. I was expecting a pitch black experience with only the special effects being visible or audible, similarly to Space Mountain or Verbolten, but the entire ride was very visible as there were white lights lighting it up, which ultimately defeats the purpose of a dark indoor roller coaster in my opinion, because you could still very much so see where you are going and what's coming next. On rides like Space Mountain or Verbolten, you literally can't see what's coming next, and that adds to the thrill in my book. So with that being said, I'm basically going to treat this review as if I'm just reviewing Joker's Jinx. And also because I don't have footage of Flight of Fear. For obvious reasons. So even with the letdown of special effects, I absolutely love the Premier Spaghetti Bowl coasters, as they combine some interesting forces with incredible head chopper effects. It was really hard to consciously keep my hands raised the whole time on any of these coasters, knowing that I was whizzing by giant steel supports, even though I'm mostly confident that they have proper clearance. Hopefully. The ride's foreign versions exert some epic positive G-forces, sometimes enough to make you gray out. There is also a super freaking cool transition that comes at some point after the mid-course. It's a really aggressive maneuver, and is best experienced in the back, as that is where you will traverse this element with the most speed. I definitely prefer this moment on Joker's Jinx because unlike Flight of Fear, Joker's Jinx physically doesn't have a mid-course, so the train never slows down. On Flight of Fear, the train comes to almost a complete dead stop, which kind of sucks, as it kills all of your momentum. Okay, well, Goliath only does it so that it doesn't euthanize people on the extreme helix. Joker's Jinx proves that it is perfectly fine to ride the Premier Spaghetti Bowls without brakes.
Whoa, MNL2, did you just defend Goliath?
Yes, I defended Goliath. And by defended Goliath, I mean I defended the mid-course. And the only reason I defend the mid-course is because without the mid-course, Goliath would literally kill people. And if Goliath killed people, then no one would ride it. And if no one would ride it, then Magic Mountain would no longer have a GP magnet to absorb like 25% of the park's crowds. And without a GP magnet, the actual good rides in the park, like Smexy Lexi right next door, would get longer lines instead. So yeah, Goliath is doing me a huge favor. Thanks, Goliath. You're the best at being the worst. Anyways, yeah, Flight of Fear is fun and intense. That's about it. Alright, I feel like I'm being extremely generous by putting Orion at number 4, because Orion does not crack my top 5 at Kings Island when looking at everything and not just intensity. That being said, for me personally, I wouldn't really consider Orion to be extremely intense, but then again, Kings Island doesn't really have a whole lot of insane intense experiences, so you lucked out this time, Orion. You're welcome. Orion is the park's B&M Giga Coaster. And I better not see a single comment arguing against that, or else I will personally steal all of your nano coasters. And it is a solid B&M, but nothing like what I had expected a B&M Giga to be like. This makes me really start to question Fury, cause like, Fury 325 doesn't seem all that much more interesting than Orion, but I haven't ridden Fury yet, so I'll just have to wait and see. So the reason I'm even putting Orion this high is because it does actually have 4 super solid moments that contribute to the ride's intensity. The first of which, in my opinion, is of course the first drop and the pullout at the bottom of the first drop. You hit that next hill with a ton of speed generated by an incredible first drop. Definitely one of the best parts of Orion. The next element I want to talk about is the speed hill after the turnaround. This hill delivers insanely sustained flowjector airtime, and when you have illegal amounts of room, you really get sent flying out of your seat on this thing. The next moment I want to mention is the weirdly shaped helix thing. It definitely pulls an immense amount of positive Gs, even enough to cause a gray out when this ride is hauling. The last moment is that ejector hill immediately before the final brake run. Something I noticed about this ride is that this hill comes out of seemingly nowhere. You would generally expect that when you are approaching watching the brakes on a roller coaster that nothing super interesting is gonna happen. Literally every single time I rode Orion, every single person on the whole train let out a sudden shriek as no one really saw this hill coming. This might actually be the best moment of this ride, which is kind of sad. Cause it's like a little tiny hill in comparison to the rest of this giant drawn out experience. Which reminds me, the rest of this ride is just super drawn out and like, not extremely intense. So combining all the factors that I talked about regarding Orion, this is why I have Orion at number 4 on this list. Hey, I see you up there. What on earth do you think you're doing? This is security. Seriously guys, you need to take that truck. Go home to your video games. This place is not safe. Whatever you do, don't go in the shed. Mystic Timbers was honestly a coaster that I have unironically been looking forward to ever since this thing was announced in 2016, even though at that point I had absolutely no intentions on going to Kings Island anytime soon. Either way, this whole thing with the shed always fascinated me, so much so that I tried recreating hashtag what's in the shed with West Coast Racers, but it never really caught on. Anyways, the only reason I'm talking so much about theming is because I actually want to commend Cedar Fair with this one. Most Cedar Fair coasters don't have cool theming, but no matter how much people say the shed is lame, it is still so much cooler than just a standard brake run with no decorations or props or effects anywhere. This whole ride's eerie and elaborate theming is remarkable. However, it has absolutely nothing to do with the actual ride's intensity. Okay, so looking at the layout, there's not a whole lot to say other than the fact that this ride delivers the most aggressive and relentless bursts of laterals and airtime on any GCI that I have ever ridden. And yes, I am putting this above Apocalypse at Magic Mountain in both intensity and in general. But don't worry, Apocalypse is still way better than Ghost Rider. And so Mystic Timbers is just a super intense experience as it rapidly sends you every which way through the woods, snapping you up and down and side to side. It is super powerful and super intense, especially given its smaller size. But yeah, this ride really had me shedding some tears of joy. I'll stop now, I'm sorry. Okay everyone, it's that time of the video again where I say something super unpopular or controversial and then expect a crap ton of hate comments because of it. It's Invertigo, being the second most intense ride in the park. More intense than Orion. Also better than Orion in general. Also smoother than Orion. Also more reliable than Orion. Also more. Anyways, Invertigo is an inverted face-to-face Vekoma boomerang, a rather unique style of boomerangs. Although the boomerang model in general is extremely common, as you can find a boomerang in just about all 7 states in the country. But the inverted boomerang is special. Maybe not as special as the giant inverted boomerang, but please bring back Deja Vu, New England, you don't even want it anymore. I mentioned this during my Kings Island vlog immediately after riding Invertigo, and so I might as well just play that clip.
Boomerangs are cool because you can go through the layout both forward and backwards, but the really cool thing about Invertigo is that you can ride it the opposite way. Normal boomerangs, you start normal boomerangs, you start off going up backwards, and then you do it forwards first. But with this one, we were seating on the opposite side, so we went up forwards. Shut up, copyrighted music.
So yeah, going through a boomerang in the opposite direction of standard boomerangs while also being under the track and getting snapped around differently just creates a super freaking intense roller coaster in general. On top of that, I found this roller coaster to be absolutely butter smooth, and my head doesn't even clear those girthy Vekoma overkill restraints. So without the headbanging, and with the disorientation of the face-to-face boomerang, and also the intense positives that you pull, as well as the weird snapping motion on this Cobra roll, just everything this ride does, even the sheer speed feeling of blasting through the station at max speed, everything on this ride contributes to its overall intensity. However, there is one ride at Kings Island that honestly just undoubtedly deserves the #1 spot when it comes to intensity, because if Banshee doesn't shriek the soul out of you because of how intense it is, then I think you need to see a doctor. But then again, this is also coming from the same guy that says Intimidator 305 is less intense than Viper at Magic Mountain. Banshee is the park's B&M inverted coaster, and for about a week and a half, this was my absolute favorite inverted coaster ever. And then I rode Alpengeist. But nonetheless, this is still an extremely powerful inverted coaster. This definitely has the strongest drop on an inverted coaster that I've ridden because it is so unnaturally steep. You accelerate down the drop so fast and you are instantly met with an insanely intense dive loop, vertical loop, and a somewhat graceful 0G roll. The first 2 inversions are sure to make you gray out at least just a little bit, and the rushing speed sensation you feel as this ride drives you through the first half is unmatched. Once you get past the 0G roll, the ride starts becoming more aggressive. The pretzel knot is a pretty unique and forceful element. The second vertical loop will also carry its speed all the way through, delivering even more intensity. Then comes a really intense turnaround, probably the second strongest moment of positive G's that this ride delivers. And we haven't even gotten to the strongest part yet. Next comes the most graceful moment on this ride in my opinion. A super long and stretched out inline twist that will actually deliver a touch of hang time as you glide through it at a lower speed. But then afterwards, using the last bit of speed this ride has left, you pull into a super tight downwards helix, definitely enough to make your vision splotchy as you slam into that final brake run. This is easily one of the most unique inverted roller coasters out there, one of the most intense, and without a doubt, the most intense roller coaster that you can experience at Kings Island. Anyways, those were my thoughts regarding the coasters of Kings Island and how they compare to one another when it comes to intensity. Keep in mind that this list is solely based on my own personal opinions, and I fully understand that some of you may completely disagree with anything or literally everything on this list. So if that's the case, feel free to comment down below what you find to be the most intense roller coaster at Kings Island, or the most intense roller coaster that you've ridden is. But anyways, if you did end up enjoying the video, then please remember to leave a like and subscribe with notifications turned on so you'll be alerted whenever I upload a new video. But until then, I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.